Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to explore a heartfelt moment where Truong admits that his lost memories don't matter anymore, because all he truly wants is lytieunu, Tieu, and their baby, safe and happy together. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next videos. Though Truong still can't fully recall every memory, one feeling remains sharp and undeniable. Truong's heart reacts to lytieunu in a way that feels deeper than logic. Truong looks at lytieunu and speaks slowly, like he wants every word to land right. Even if my memories aren't fully back, Truong still has a really strong feeling toward lytieunu. Truong wants to say, thank you. Thank you for staying beside Truong, for encouraging Truong during the moments when Truong felt completely stuck, when Truong didn't know how to move forward. lytieunu lowers her gaze, fingers lightly holding the edge of her bowl. Truong continues, voice softer. lytieunu showed Truong the joy that still exists, and the future that can still happen. And Truong realized something important. The future isn't about Truong forcing himself to regain memories. The future is Truong being with lytieunu, with Tieu, and with our baby, living peacefully, living happily, like right now. lytieunu blinks fast, trying to hide the emotion that rises in her eyes. Then she forces a small smile and nudges the noodle bowl toward Truong. Truong, eat up. Truong picks up his chopsticks, takes a bite, and immediately his expression changes. He chews slowly, savouring it like it's not just food but comfort. lytieunu watches, nervous and hopeful at the same time. Then she can't help teasing herself, trying to lighten the moment. Seeing Truong eat so deliciously, maybe lytieunu didn't cook badly, huh? Heh. Truong nods, still chewing. Then he swallows and looks up at her. Truong is full, dear. lytieunu's noodles are so good. lytieunu's face warms with pride, but she tries to act casual. Really? Then tomorrow lytieunu will cook more for Truong. Okay, Truong answers. lytieunu quickly reaches for the cup, always thinking of him. Truong, drink water. Truong starts to stand up to clear the bowls, but lytieunu immediately waves her hand. No, Truong, let lytieunu clear it. Truong, just sit. Truong sits back down, watching lytieunu move around the small kitchen space. The air feels different today, less biting, more gentle. Truong glances toward the doorway and says what he's been noticing. lytieunu, today feels warmer than yesterday, right? lytieunu nods, eyes drifting toward the little vegetable patch outside like she's measuring the season. Yes, today seems warmer. lytieunu wonders from now until Tiet. Will that vegetable spot still be edible for Truong? Truong understands right away. That small piece of land holds their tiny hopes, what they can grow, what they can sell, what they can hold on to. Oh yes, Truong replies. From now until Tet, that spot will probably sell cabbages. lytieunu makes a small sound of agreement, then places the cup closer. Drink water, Truong. Thank you, Truong says, taking another sip. Then the sweet warmth of the moment shifts back into reality, the kind that never waits. Truong glances at the potatoes stacked nearby and speaks about the plan. Later, Truong will take those potatoes to sell. lytieunu's mouth tightens slightly. Not because she disagrees, but because worry always comes first for her. Yes, lytieunu is also afraid they won't last long. Better to sell and see if people will buy and eat. lytieunu looks down, voice quieter. lytieunu is afraid that near Tet other people will sell too. Then it'll be harder for Truong to sell. Truong nods and reaches out to touch her hand briefly. We'll leave some at home for lytieunu and Tieu to eat, Truong says. Then Truong will take the rest to sell. lytieunu stays home and doesn't do heavy work, okay? lytieunu opens her mouth as if she wants to argue, but Truong continues, already making her feel safer with his certainty. Truong will sell early and return early. Truong will find a nearby spot to sell. Going far is tiring. Truong knows. lytieunu finally nods, though her eyes still hold worry. The room falls into a quiet, warm rhythm. Cups, bowls, soft footsteps. Truong's words of gratitude still echo in the space like a turning point. a shift from being trapped in missing memories to choosing the life in front of him. The weather warming feels like a mirror of what's happening in Truong's heart, slowly thawing, slowly accepting. Truong takes another sip of water. Thank you, Tieu. Tieu wipes her hands and looks at him. Okay. Truong rest a bit. Then, Truong go. Truong stands and adjusts the basket handle, but Tieu suddenly steps closer, her expression more serious. Truong, Tieu says softly. It's hard for Truong. Walking so far. No vehicle. Should we buy a bike? Truong almost laughs, half amused, half tired. A bike? Truong doesn't even know if Truong can ride anymore. Tieu frowns, thinking hard. Then... Truong lifts his shoulders like he's trying to lighten it. Whatever. Truong walks for healthy legs. No problem. Truong isn't that weak. Tieu still doesn't look convinced, but she doesn't argue. Instead, she reaches for Truong's watch. Tieu holds it carefully. Tieu will store this inside. One day Truong will wear it again. If Truong carries heavy things, it might break. Truong looks at the watch, then at her. Okay, Truong says gently. Tieu store it for Truong. Tieu nods like she's been given a responsibility that matters. Truong lifts the basket of potatoes. It's heavy, but he hides it behind calm. I'm going now, Truong says. Go, Truong, but remember, Truong must return early, Tieu answers immediately. I will, Truong promises. And Truong be careful, Truong smiles. Truong will. Tieu follows him to the doorway anyway, still fussing like always. Wait, Truong take this basket, it's more convenient. Truong adjusts the handle again. All right, Truong go now. Go carefully, Tieu calls, voice high with worry. Tieu stay home with Dewey, Truong reminds her. Tieu nods, standing there as Truong begins walking away. A few steps later, Truong hears Tieu call again, softer now, like she's talking to herself but still sending the words to him. Truong, come back early. Truong raises a hand without turning back. If Truong looks back, Truong might not leave. The path feels longer with the potatoes. Each step pulls at Truong's shoulder, but the steady rhythm of walking becomes its own kind of determination. Life might be heavy, but Truong keeps moving. When Truong reaches the market area, it's already busy. Voices, bargaining, footsteps, laughter, tired sighs. Truong sets the basket down and forces confidence into his voice. Potatoes! Potatoes here! An older woman looks over and points. How much, Truong? Truong answers quickly. 20,000 Vietnamese dong per kilogram. I'll take 1 kilogram, the woman says. Truong nods. Yes, auntie. Then Truong realizes he needs a scale. Truong turns to a nearby stall. Grandma, can you lend Truong a scale? The grandma studies Truong for a moment, then reaches under her table. Here, kid, use it. Thank you, Grandma, Truong says with real gratitude. Truong starts selecting potatoes carefully. The woman watches closely. No, not that one, she says. Pick better ones. Yes, yes, Truong replies, embarrassed but obedient. Truong chooses nicer potatoes, weighs them, and sets them aside. 1 kilogram, Truong confirms. 20,000, Truong says. The woman hands the money over. Truong takes it carefully like it matters more than paper, because it does. Thank you, Truong says again, and she walks away. Truong straightens his back and calls out again, Potatoes! Fresh potatoes! A man slows down and asks, Western potatoes or local? Western potatoes, Truong answers. How much? 20,000 per kilogram. Give me 1 kilogram, the man says. Yes, uncle, Truong replies. The man points at the pile. Big ones. Give me big ones. Truong nods and selects larger potatoes, placing them on the scale. Then the man changes his mind. Make it 1.5 kilograms. Truong blinks, then smiles. Yes, uncle, 1.5. Truong adjusts the weight, tells the price, and the man pays. Another small win. Each sale sparks hope in Truong, Maybe Truong can sell out. Maybe Tieu won't worry as much tonight. Maybe Dewey can eat better tomorrow. But under that hope is fatigue. Standing, calling out, counting money, carrying heavy weight. This is the pressure of daily survival. This is Truong's life now. Family warmth on one side, hard labour on the other. Both real, both constant. When Truong finally returns home, the sky's darker, the warm air slowly cooling. Truong steps inside and freezes. He smells rice, meat, vegetables, something fried. Truong looks toward the kitchen. Tieu, you cooked already? Tieu turns quickly, surprised Truong is back. Yes, Tieu says. Tieu thought, maybe we can eat earlier today. Truong frowns slightly, worried. Why so early? Tieu doesn't need to rush. Tieu shrugs. Tieu is home anyway, and it's not dark yet. We can eat outside, more airy. Truong nods. Okay, Truong will wash hands and feet first. I'll set the rice, Tieu says. I'll help, Truong replies automatically. Tieu hesitates but finally nods. Okay, but hurry. Dewey is drinking milk, then Dewey will want to eat. Truong washes quickly, hearing Tieu gentle voice guiding Dewey, making sure Dewey stays away from hot soup. That sound tightens Truong's chest in a way he can't explain. When Truong comes back, the table is full. Stir-fried vegetables, soup, meat, fried potatoes, golden and fragrant. Truong stares. Tieu fried potatoes too? Tieu smiles. Dewey wanted them. Truong glances outside, the sky is darkening. Is it still okay to eat outside? Truong asks. Probably still okay, Tieu answers. They carry dishes out together. Then Dewey runs out, excited. Eat rice, eat rice. Dewey sits beside Tieu, then scoots closer to Truong. Mosquitoes buzz, and Dewey scratches his arm. Mum, mosquito bit Dewey. Tieu clicks her tongue. So many mosquitoes today. Dewey points proudly at the dishes. Mum cooked many dishes. Fried potatoes for Dewey. Then Dewey starts inviting everyone like he's been taught. Voice loud and happy. Dad eat rice. Mom eat rice. Dewey repeats it again and again, smiling so wide it makes Truong laugh. Okay, Truong says. We eat. But Truong can't help worrying. Truong looks at Tieu seriously. Tieu, you don't need to cook so many dishes every day. It's hard for Tieu. Tieu shakes her head immediately. Not hard. It is, Truong insists softly. Tieu is pregnant. Tieu brushes it off like she refuses to accept weakness. Don't think too much. Truong, eat. Dewey drops his spoon. It clatters. Truong stands up right away. Truong will wash it for Dewey. Tieu starts to say no, but Truong is already moving. When Truong comes back, Tieu is still feeding Dewey, still picking food, still being gentle and firm at the same time. Dewey takes a bite of potatoes and his eyes brighten. Dad, potato good, Truong laughs. Dewey likes it. Yes, Dewey shouts. Truong tastes it and nods. Really good, Tieu. Tieu smiles proudly. Tomorrow Tieu can fry again. Or Tieu teach Truong, Truong says, half joking, half serious. Then Truong fry for Tieu and Dewey. Tieu laughs, but her eyes soften. Dewey points. What this? Pork, Truong answers. Then Dewey gets distracted by the pet and drops the pork back into his bowl, completely forgetting. Tieu sighs. Dewey, eat properly. Truong watches them and suddenly feels time moving fast. End of year. Tet coming. Truong sets his chopsticks down. Tieu, it's near the end of the year already. Truong doesn't know if Grandma over there is still healthy. Tieu looks up immediately. Tomorrow, Truong continues. Truong wants to go visit foster mom. Truong wants Tieu go together. Tieu nods. Okay. Truong looks at Tieu's belly, then at Dewey, guilt rising. Truong works all day, Truong admits. Truong doesn't have much time beside Tieu. Truong is sorry. Tieu shakes her head gently. No. Truong works hard. Dewey interrupts loudly, unable to handle serious talk. Dad, eat potato! Truong laughs, the heaviness easing. Okay. The sky darkens, but the table stays warm. Truong feels something settle inside, something clear. Truong may not have all his old memories, but Truong knows this. What matters most is here. Tieu, Dewey, the baby, healthy, happy, together. That's what Truong chooses. Truong reaches for another piece of fried potato, but Dewey leans forward with a serious little face, like this is the most important thing in the world. Dad, do you want more potato? Tieu chuckles, but her eyes are soft. Dewey, you already ate a lot. Dewey shakes his head hard. No, Dewey's still hungry. Truong smiles and slides the plate closer. Okay, Dewey, eat more, but chew slowly, all right? Dewey nods like he understands, then takes a huge bite anyway. A second later, he scratches his arm and complains loudly. Mosquito bite Dewey. Tieu's worry returns immediately. She looks at Dewey's skin, then glances around the yard. So many mosquitoes today. Truong, Dewey will catch cold at night. Dewey pouts. Dewey not cold? Truong looks at the sky. It's darker now, but the air is still warm. It's warmer than yesterday, Tieu. Dewey probably feels hot. Tieu still doesn't relax. She stands quickly. No, wind comes later. Tieu will get Dewey jacket. Truong reaches out gently. Tieu sit. Truong will get it. Tieu hesitates, guilt flashing on her face. But Truong just came back tired. Truong shakes his head. Truong is okay. Truong go. Tieu stay here with Dewey. Dewey points toward the house, excited. Jacket inside. Truong walks in, finds the jacket and comes back out, only to realise Dewey's chair is empty. Truong pauses. Dewey ju roa? Tieu points toward the doorway, half annoyed, half amused. Dewey ran inside already. A second later, Dewey reappears with the jacket clutched in his hands like a prize. Dewey take already, Dewey announces proudly. Truong blinks, then laughs. Wow, Dewey is fast. Dewey grins. Dewey hot. Dewey store. And before Tieu can stop him, Dewey runs back inside again. Dewey, slow, don't run. Tieu calls, voice rising. Truong can't help smiling. He sits back down and lets out a warm sigh. Dewey is growing fast. Tieu's expression softens. Yes, Dewey eats a lot, then grows fast. Dewey returns again almost immediately, acting like nothing happened. He climbs onto his chair and drums his fingers on the table. Dad, Dewey says, eyes sparkling again. Few days more. Dad take Dewey go play ball house? Tieu raises her eyebrows. Again? Dewey always want to go ball house? Dewey nods eagerly. Ball house, many. Truong rubs Dewey's head gently. If Truong is free, Truong will take Dewey. But Dewey must listen to Mom, and Dewey must study at school, okay? Dewey's face falls at the word study. Study? Tieu leans closer, gentle but firm. Dewey must go school, no ball house. Dewey stares at Tieu, then turns to Truong like he's negotiating. Dad free, then go? Truong chuckles. Yes, when Truong is free. Satisfied, Dewey goes back to eating. He picks up a potato, then suddenly holds it out, dramatic like a little adult. Mom, eat. Tieu smiles warmly. Thank you, Dewey. Then Dewey turns and offers one to Truong too. Dad, eat. Truong takes it with a grin. Thank you, Dewey. Tieu watches them for a moment, and her voice turns light again. Tomorrow Tieu fry potatoes again. Dewey likes. Truong likes. Truong looks at her seriously. Tieu, you don't need to do everything. Teach Truong. Truong can fry for Tieu and Dewey. Tieu laughs like it's impossible, but her eyes shine. Truong can? Really? Truong nods. Truong can learn. Dewey claps his hands. Dad fry! Dad fry! Tieu laughs, cheeks warming. Okay. Later, Tieu teach Truong. They finish eating slowly. The food is almost gone, and the sky has turned deep blue. The air is still warm, but there's a faint chill coming in, the kind that reminds you night is settling. Truong leans back and looks at them, Tieu, Dewey, the small table, the simple dishes, and his chest tightens with something steady and clear. Truong speaks softly. Tieu. Truong likes this. The way we sit together like this. Family. Tieu turns, listening. Truong continues, eyes moving from Tieu to Dui and then to Tieu's belly. Before, Truong always thought about memories. Truong thought if Truong remembers everything, then everything will be okay. He pauses, choosing his words carefully. But now Truong understands. Memories are not the most important. Tieu's eyes glisten immediately, but she stays quiet. The most important, Truong says, voice steady, is Tieu, Dui, and our baby. If Tieu is healthy, Dui is healthy, baby is healthy, and we can be happy like this. Truong only needs that. Tieu looks down fast, trying to hide her tears. Her voice trembles. Don't say like that. Tieu will cry. Truong reaches across the table and holds her hand gently. Then cry. It's okay. Dui watches them, confused by the mood, then interrupts like he always does when things feel too heavy. Dad, tomorrow, go Grandma. Truong blinks, then smiles at him. Yes, Dui. Tomorrow we visit Grandma. Dui nods seriously, then points at Tieu's belly. Baby go too? Tieu laughs through her tears. Baby is inside Mom, so baby goes. Dui's eyes widen. Wow! Tieu starts collecting bowls, but Truong stands immediately. Tieu sit! Truong clean! Tieu shakes her head. No? Truong stops her gently. Truong does it. Tieu rests. Dui jumps up too. Dui help. Tieu reaches out quickly. Dui no touch. Bowl broken. Dui freezes, then points at the cracked bowl on the table. Mum, bowl broken already? Tieu sighs. Yes, broken already. Dui nods like he solved a mystery. Mosquito broke it. Truong laughs out loud. Mosquito did it? Dui nods confidently. Yes. Tieu shakes her head, smiling despite herself. This kid. Truong washes the dishes inside. The warm water runs over his hands, and he listens to Tieu outside reminding Dui to wash, to stay close, to stop running. Those small reminders feel like home. When Truong returns, he sees Tieu standing near the doorway, one hand resting on her belly. Dui is beside her, yawning and rubbing his eyes. Truong bends slightly. Dui sleepy? Dui nods. Sleepy? Tieu looks at Truong, worry returning again. Truong, today you walked far and sold potatoes. Are you tired? Truong nods honestly. A bit. Tieu bites her lip. Tomorrow still need sell? Truong shakes his head. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow we visit Grandma. Tieu exhales like she's been holding her breath. Okay. Truong steps closer, voice gentle. Tieu, don't carry everything alone. Truong knows life is hard. Truong knows sailing is tiring. But Truong is not alone. Truong has Tieu. Truong has Dui. Truong has baby. That's why Truong can keep going. Tieu's eyes fill again. Truong, Dui interrupts with a sleepy complaint, scratching his arm. Mom, mosquito still? Tieu laughs softly and wipes her cheek. Okay. We go inside. They bring Dui in, help him wash, and put him to bed. When Dui finally closes his eyes, the house becomes quiet. Tieu looks at Truong, voice small. Truong, thank you for coming back safe. Truong squeezes her hand gently. Tieu, thank you for waiting. He looks at her belly, then back to her eyes. Tomorrow we go see Grandma. After that, Truong will keep working, keep walking, keep selling, because Truong's future is here, with Tieu, with Dui, with our baby. Tieu nods, tears falling freely now. Okay. Outside, the air is still strangely warm for this time of year, and inside, Truong feels something stronger than memories, peace and hope and the quiet promise of family.